Has pop music been feeling weird to you lately? Maybe you think it's all corporate and commercialized. Maybe you think it's all AI generated. Maybe you think it's just not as good as it was a few years ago. Pop songs have been endlessly debated for years now, but today I want to focus on the least discussed aspect of the pop song. The pop song, by which I mean the structure of a pop song, the verse, chorus, bridge, etc.
I think form really matters to people because it's something they really understand on a fundamental level.
For me, a song is a sleight of hand magic trick. We understand what it's doing, but we're still completely mesmerized by it.
Because if we can better understand how the pop song has changed, maybe we can figure out why pop music is in the place that it's in. Now, unfortunately, this is where I have to do the video essay meme of normal thing followed by immediate jump to beginning of time. You know, like how did the Macarena become such a huge hit? In neo-feudal Ohio, but we do have to go back to when the very idea of a pop song started. Long ago, in the ancient times, there was a problem for anyone trying to tell a story. The audience couldn't Google it later. In a predominantly oral culture, if you wanted a story to survive, it had to be memorable. Hitting folks with a long, drawn-out tale with a bunch of words would usually get you responses like, huh? And then they don't remember your tale, and then it's lost to time. And one of the best ways to make something memorable is to give it rhythm, repetition, and melody. So, bards and storytellers would take their stories, set them to rhythm, and create memorable songs out of them. Thus began the strophic song, where each part had the same music, but different lyrics. In the olden days of yore, folk songs were about telling you the story of a people, of customs, of local news. I've traveled through the wilderness, gather round and hark. A goth girl named Pink Chew done made Drake bark. This is where we got the verse, the section of the song that's meant to tell a story. But there's a problem. A song only has one part. It's kind of boring. We gotta liven things up. But how? To quote Timbaland, take him to the chorus. Where the chorus came from is kind of hard to pin down. It's one of those things where a lot of different societies just kind of came up with it on their own. And what they came up with was a section of a song where everyone is meant to sing along. Think about congregational songs, work songs, call and response music where one person leads and the crowd joins in. The chorus is the section of a song that repeats each time with the same lyrics and music, which makes it easy for you to sing along with and easy for it to get stuck in your head. In other words, it's the part of the song that's meant to spread. As songwriting developed, a dynamic between verse and chorus began to take shape. You use the verse to tell the story, and you use the chorus to get people singing. In A Change Is Gonna Come, Sam Cooke describes the continued struggles he faces, which makes his more positive outlook in the chorus all the more meaningful amid the civil rights movement. In Party Rock Anthem, Red Foo and Sky Blue use the verse to establish their partying bona fides, which helps them in the chorus assert why they are the leaders of the party rock. By the way, I only just recently learned that they sing Party Rock is in the house tonight as opposed to Party Rockers in the house tonight. Am I the only one who's unsettled by that? Like, the entity known as Party Rock is in your house tonight, and to satiate it, you must shake it like the gerbils in the commercial. And if you're a real pro, you might even flip that verse-chorus dynamic on its head. You know, Outkast's Hey Ya? The verses are about a difficult relationship, and then the chorus is just Andre 3000 going, Hey Ya! But there's a new problem now. A song only has two parts? It's kind of boring. I know it was boring when a song only had one part, and then I was like, oh my God, it now has two. That's so great. But I don't know, now I'm bored at this point, you know? We gotta liven things up again. But how? To quote Timbaland, take him to the bridge. Defining the bridge is kind of hard. Most definitions I've found say that it's a contrasting section meant to break up a song's repeating pattern. But you could say the same thing about the chorus, So what makes the bridge its own thing? Usually, the bridge is notably different from the verse and chorus. If a verse tells the story and a chorus gets the people singing, then a bridge is where the artist can go to Freaktown, USA, population freak. The artist can add in completely new musical material. They can change up the instrumentation in a major way. They can communicate a twist, either musically, like with a key change, or lyrically, like in Taylor Swift's Love Story, where she changes Romeo and Juliet to have Romeo propose to Juliet, and then they run away together. Bridges really came into their own in the early 1900s with the rise of the AABA form. The name lines up perfectly. B, bridge, A, verse. This was the standard form for Tin Pan Alley and Broadway, Somewhere Over the Rainbow. That song hits you with the classic melody twice in a row, the Somewhere Over the Rainbow. But what happens after that? A new bit of music, Someday I'll Wish Upon a Star, etc. And then it returns to the initial section, A, B, A. There are other parts of the pop song, the intro, the outro, the pre-chorus, the post-chorus, the pre-intro, the post-outro. But to keep our discussion digestible, I'm focusing on these three. Now that we're all caught up on the anatomy of a pop song, we can properly diagnose what's going on in pop music today. And I'm not alone. Earlier, I had these two fine gents pop up.
I'm musicologist Nate Sloan.
And I'm songwriter Charlie Harding.
And we're the hosts of Switched on Pop, the podcast about the making and meaning of pop music.
Switched on Pop has been a leading podcast in pop music circles for over a decade now. They were an inspiration to me when I started making videos, and their show just launched on Netflix with a 4-part series on the pop song. Wow, what a coincidence.
So let's zoom in on modern pop music and ask these experts the question that my entire sense of self-worth is riding on.
How much has pop music structure changed over all of these years?
My answer actually might be how little has changed.
Well, this is awkward.
Back in the mid 2010s, I was convinced we were on the precipice of like a real revolution in pop. In fact, we wrote a whole article for the New York Times in 2021 where we were, predicting that pop form was going to have a revolution. We were listening to songs like Bad Guy by Billie Eilish and Sicko Mode by Travis Scott and Bad Bunny, Calvin Harris, and like EDM tracks that were on the charts. And we were like, there's so much happening. Hip hop, EDM, reggaeton. The pop song as we know it is about to transform. And the verse chorus form that has dominated the pop charts for like over 60 years is gonna be usurped by some new kind of structure that we never saw coming. And our prediction, I'm not going to sugarcoat it, was incorrect.
Now, this news may have you sobbing, crying. It may have shattered your entire universe. But I think the continued existence of the pop song reveals two things. One, while the structure doesn't radically change, the sound does. Early 2010s EDM, late 2010s hip hop, early 2020s country. Pop music doesn't literally sound the same across all decades. And two, just because the pop song format still exists doesn't mean it's stagnated. In fact, if you look across history, sections come and go in popularity all the time.
Digital download to streaming to short form video, all of those things have caused evolution in song form, right? Like intros are getting shorter, choruses are coming earlier. In general, songs have gotten shorter. More and more we'll see sections of songs get dropped out in order to have quicker songs that are quick hits that work well on TikTok. But underlying this is still the essential pop music genres still very much there.
There was the 2010s when the chorus disappeared. Think of all the big EDM pop songs that were getting big, like Katy Perry's Dark Horse. Does that song have a chorus? I guess there's the repeated section, the so you wanna play with magic, but the way that builds up makes it feel more like a pre-chorus than a chorus. If anything, the beat drop is the chorus in that song. You could almost call it a pop drop. a term coined by Charlie and Nate. In the 1970s, disco songs gave us super long intros and outros. They also cut out bridges. Why would you want contrasting sections in your dance music? You're there to shake ass and cut rugs. Any sections that would deviate heavily from that would just throw you off. In the 1960s, Motown played around hard with song structure. Some of their songs absolutely had verses and choruses, like top 5 song ever, My Girl, but then there was I Was Made to Love Her by Stevie Wonder, which was more influenced by gospel and call and response music. Or his other song, For Once in My Life, which doesn't have a dedicated chorus and actually has an AABA form. And speaking of which, remember how I was talking about Tin Pan Alley and AABA earlier?
Those songs didn't have traditional choruses or even intros.
At most, they had these short sections at the start that almost felt like spoken word passages. The actual song began with the A section.
This was done in part so that listeners could get straight to the meat of the song.
Wow, I can't believe shorter songs were ruining music back in the 1920s.
TikTok must have been frying their attention spans.
All of this should remind us of something important. Songs are not good because they have choruses or bridges or intros. And likewise, songs are not bad if they don't have choruses or bridges or intros.
Just because we can identify the tropes and the craft of writing doesn't mean that we are actually connecting with what it's trying to say and really engaging with the work. And so, for everyone who's missing bridges, I think it's always worth questioning, well, what do you love about a bridge? And where does a bridge work?
But all of this begs a question. Why do we care so much? Why do we care about pop song form? Why do we get so riled up by it? Why does a new video essay or TikTok about it blow up every couple of months?
Form is the most apprehensible part of a song for people. Not everyone has musical training and not everyone knows different chord names or different, how to identify different rhythms. But I would hazard that anybody with ears can identify different parts of a song and knows when a chorus is coming and understands how songwriters and performers will, build out of the pre-chorus into the chorus to create that feeling of heightened tension and release and understand even on some level that the styles or the genres they follow certain structural trends and formula.
We as humans love repetition. We also love surprise. I know that's a contradiction. We contain multitudes. We have dumb primate monkey instincts at the core of our brains, but we're also pretty intelligent in a lot of ways. When we get used to something in pop music, we get bored and we crave something new. It's why the sound of pop music changes every couple of years. It's also why a lot of pop fans have started getting deep into the songwriting process and the business behind it all. And I want to be clear here about something. The people who write pop songs know that you know.
Based on a conversation we had with the songwriter Taylor Parks, who has written with Ariana Grande, Panic at the Disco, Raven Lenae, Jenny of Blackpink, she is thinking about what that artist's fans expect from them in terms of things as granular as song form. She even told us some artists are bridge artists and some aren't. She's not just going to sit down and write a formula song for an artist. Verse, chorus, bridge. It's always tailored to what she thinks their fans will expect. And they sometimes will even throw Easter eggs at the fans. There's this song Like Jenny that she wrote for Jenny of Blackpink. The song doesn't have a pre-chorus. And right before the chorus, Jenny actually sings, "Don't chorus, take it to the chorus," which is something songwriters say in the room, to make sure that you're not spinning your wheels. Songwriters, producers, and artists are recognizing the hyperliteracy of their audiences and playing into that with their releases.
Music is about managing expectations. Am I getting bored in the verse? Is it time to move forward into the pre-chorus? Those expectations exist at the most granular level, as well as at the level of mythology about that artist. When we think about Taylor Swift, she's constantly thinking about not just what does that exact song need, but where does it fit in the album? How does it fit into the larger story of both her as an artist, her persona, et cetera, et cetera.
This might be controversial, but I actually have a lot of respect for people who write pop songs, like folks who try to find the simplest ways to get something stuck in your head. It's almost a kind of magic, you know? It's like Charlie said earlier, a pop song is sleight of hand. If you're trying to get someone's attention, why would you do what everybody else is doing? Pop music is, I'd argue more than any other genre out there, a dialogue between artist and audience. Because the dialogue is happening at our most base instincts without us even consciously thinking about it. I'm sure there's a song that you hate that still managed to get stuck in your head. Maybe you hate it because it got stuck in your head. Pop music is a continuous game of surprise and disruption. And that's all before we get into the new surprising and disrupting technology in music right now. To quote Timbaland, we talk about AI, and that is the only thing that has a pure soul right now. That part is not as catchy as the other two.
I'm inspired by a lot of the pushback that people have made. I think personally, music for me is a deeply human act about communicating. It's about emotion. And I hope that a lot of this generative AI music goes the way of the player piano, like an interesting novelty that we thought might replace us, that may result in some very significant legislation that informs how people get paid.
What I'm trying to get at with all of this is that all of these pop songs that we love or hate, they've all got the same underlying skeleton to them. And he's just doing his own thing. Pop songs are stories about people, about cultures, about traditions. And while today's pop stars might look very different from the bards of yesteryear, and their music might sound very different, they're fulfilling a similar purpose.
That is, taking a set of familiar tools and using them to communicate something to other people. I don't think the fact that pop music keeps returning to the same basic structures is a bad thing. We learn what each part of the song is supposed to make us feel, and then artists can give us exactly what we expect, or they can pull the rug out from under us.
If you're not a fan of pop music right now, that's fine. The story that's being told right now might not be for you. But there is still value in the story. And look, if you're really wincing at me calling like Somber or Gracie Abrams storytellers who deserve respect, hey, even a bad story is a story people tell each other.
And I think that's also why it's worth being a little careful when we say that pop music isn't as good as it used to be. Because sometimes what we're really saying is, we aren't the same people that we used to be.
One of the great gifts of making this podcast with Charlie, Switch on Pop, for over 10 years is that it's forced us to listen to new music every single week of our lives. And I really can't say enough about that, because what that does is it also forces you to constantly confront your biases and your assumptions about what your tastes and your values are in music. Over time, it really opens you up as a listener, and perhaps as a human being even, to hearing new sounds and really being accepting of new things.
Living in the era of climate change, in an era where humans are replaced by artificial general intelligence, there is no greater purpose of being human than expressing ourselves with each other, right? Like, we are social beings. Music is the place that we exchange our greatest fears and hopes and celebrations, and do it together and in community. I think there's no more human act than making music, and pop music is the kind of music that brings the most people together. So pop music deeply matters right now.
But I want to hear from you now. What do you make of pop music right now? What's your favorite or least favorite part of a song, like the verse or the chorus or the bridge? Let me know in the comments. YouTube thinks you'll like this video next. I think you'll like this one. Check them out, and thanks for watching.